Alrighty, folks, good evening. Welcome to Monday night special edition of, I'm still going to call it the Big Footy Tiger Cast because that's the channels we're using. But it will be a bit of a different feel tonight, whilst we will still talk about a couple of Richmond-ish based topics, no doubt. We do want to do just a bit more of a general finals-based show because we are on the eve of a very, very good finals series. Plenty of very good lineups. So, EJ, thank you for joining me tonight. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks for having us again. How are you?
Oh, that's right. Going well. Yeah, look, obviously it's a bit of a different year with us finishing right down the polar opposite end of the business end of the season. But yeah, it looks to be a good final series though.
Yeah, but first of all, can I just start off with how shit is the pre-finals by? Seriously.
I saw you and CB getting stuck into another on X. I can see both sides. I get his point, and as you know, I know a lot of us have grown up with local footy stuff. It is definitely a chance to get out and go see it and get stuck into it. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about it as a whole. Like, it's just, I think you can have too many implications on teams resting and not getting momentum. Like, I know when we were playing finals, we were worried about it would it have an adverse effect. I'm sure there's a couple of teams this year who are probably thankful that they've got it though.
Yes, indeed.
So I think it's all situational based, isn't it, as to whether if you're in the finals, whether you're for or against it. But why aren't you a fan of it?
I mean, we've just lost all momentum. I mean, like how long has it been since the last game? We've still got 3 nights to go, and I just want, I want the footy, and I've got nothing. And I'd go to a lot of local footy. I live right next to the Oval in Tat. We're in the GVFL. It's a strong league. Tat have been terrible this year. They finished last. But we had our ground gets used for another league's finals.
Right.
And we had a massive crowd there on the weekend. And we're probably about 400 or 500 yards away. You could hear every single goal. It was so loud. It was so good.
Yeah.
Look, I get why the bye was introduced, because people were dodging the system, and we all saw the side that North put out against us pre the game that we lost against them, the elimination final the week after, and stuff like that. And the Saints and Freo dodging, putting up terrible sides. But I think we're more mature than that now, and I think with the concussion protocol, it probably works more that if we get the final system underway and have the bye between the prelims and the grand final, and then that will be all build up.
I tend to agree, and we obviously had that scenario forced on us for the Perth grand final a few years ago, and it was a lot better from a logistics standpoint in terms of getting the balls made. But like you said, it actually allowed a week-long festival, if you want to call it that, in the build-up to the grand final. There was, think about all the different live side activations, just a whole ton of stuff that you'd be able to do in the city. I actually don't mind that, but I'm sort of going back to your point about, I suppose, how it come about. I was always in the camp of, like, I understood what the coaches and the teams did was a little bit shady, but it's their team. If they want to not play those plays and they want to lose that game, I think that's on them. If they want to risk running out of form of their other players, I know there's a whole raft of other things like broadcast and gambling and a whole heap of crap that goes along with it. But ultimately, if you're the coach and you select a side each week, I don't know why that should have been anyone else's business.
If you've won that many games, you've earned the right to rest 100%. Those players. I mean, if you go back a couple of years, when the Cats won, they dominated early and they were resting players rotating for the back half of the season, and it worked beautifully for them.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
No, the pre-grand final bye, that's not a bad idea. I suppose the other reason why people are maybe a bit more antsy about the bye now is I think for the first time in a long time, we did end the season with a lot of meaningful games as opposed to dead rubbers. I think in the past, a lot of people had already mentally switched off because they knew 6 of the 9 games meant nothing. But every game until literally the last kick.
That was so good.
Yeah, it was all meaningful. So no, I can definitely see this be both sides there.
I saw Jeff Patterson saying he played against Tatura one day with Justin Murphy in the side there.
Yep.
That was the last time we were any good. He might have been an ordinary human being, but he was a hell of a player, and he played off the half back line and set the team up. We actually won the flag that year. We've been rubbish ever since.
Jeez, that long. Oh gosh! All right,
well, I did just say that. Don't argue.
Yeah.
Yep,
EJ,
exactly
literally,
that.
we just mentioned that exact example that was the precedents and how it all come about. But they also probably earned the right to rest those players, as EJ said too. If you're good enough to get yourself in a spot where you can't fluctuate in the ladder, whether it's the top end or the bottom part of it, then why not? But
I tell you what, though, there's one very worrying possible byproduct of the bye this year. The last time it felt like this was 2016 when the Bulldogs got all their injured players back.
We just don't want it to happen to the Navy Blues.
No.
It's Carlton and Sydney are the two teams that I think are benefiting the most from this week off. So Sydney obviously had Warner out, so I'm pretty sure he'll come back. I think Papley will be back. There might be one or two others that are coming back as well. And then Carlton, like we were saying just before we started, that even if Mackay and Curnow are 70%, you're rolling the dice. You have to. You whatever happens. Obviously, the risk is that one of them gets subbed out in the first quarter and then you're cooked anyway. But I haven't heard how far along Mackay and Curnow are, but they are most definitely, I think, the two teams that benefit from it. And to Ralph's point, if it's good for Carlton, it's no bloody good.
Very true, very true. And Boggo, what's happening? Not much, mate. I actually, when I lived down in Melbourne, was a member of the same tennis club as Boggo, and he's a good mate of mine. Jones Racing actually makes a really interesting point, and I think this is actually quite close to the bone. When a player misses the grand final due to concussion, this argument will rear its head, and they will discuss the bye and they will discuss the moving it to the pre-grand final.
Yeah, it's a good point, especially now it's mandatory, 12 days or whatever it might be. It's actually almost surprising it hasn't happened for what feels like a long time. Maybe there are examples where it has happened. I know we've had other injuries, like I know Jack Graham obviously was injured a few years ago and missed a grand final, but from a concussion, I think that could be a catalyst to have the conversation to shift where the bye.
Dylan Shield got concussed and missed a grand final, didn't he? Oh, hang on, wait.
Bang! Oh dear. I know a few people are wanting to hear our thoughts on the three Richmond players leaving as well, so we'll do that quickly before we talk about the games for the finals this week. But obviously, sad to see Baker go. It sounded like it was down to the last few days in terms of decision, and I suppose Tiggs was and his mate were about 80% confident he'd stay. A few other boys were more than 100% that he was leaving, so we're all at odds on that one. But he obviously chose to leave, which is a bummer, and I still haven't had the conversation yet with the young fella. Rioli and Bolton are the ones that probably hurt a little bit more. They all hurt because we all love what they do, but it's been funny seeing all the different supporter bases getting up in arms about what we're expecting in return for some of these trades. The Baker one, I think, will get whatever it is. He's not contracted. It might be a pick in the 20s, who knows? But for Rioli and Bolton, you can be assured that we'll be asking for 2 first rounders on both fronts. And if they don't want to pay it, then they're not having them. It's quite simple.
Yeah. Oh, look. In regards to the hurt factor of the three, they all hurt. Baker doesn't hurt that much because he pretty much was upfront about it for a fair while, and he fulfilled his contract to the Richmond Football Club. Correct. So that for me is a big tick. Yes, it's not great to lose him, but he fulfilled his contract. So hats off, right? And we know the family reasons with Shea, so that's whatever. The one that really irks me a little bit is Rioli. And that sort of looks like he's cutting and running when we're struggling, which is the anti-Broad.
And not to mention when he was struggling, we wrapped our arms around him and reinvented him, found a new role and turned him into a pretty good halfback.
Yeah.
But I mean, having said that, he's going to the bloke who made that move. So that's where it gets a bit For like we talk about family for Bolton. I think in some instances, Dimmer's as close to family as it gets for Rioli in some ways too. But it's still annoying. It doesn't make it any less annoying. But it'll be. Yeah, I think a lot of non-Richmond supporters, and the same happens when other contracted players leave, that people don't understand the value of what a contract means when it comes to trade. And I feel like that a lot of these conversations would have already taken place in some capacity. They must know that they're going to get some type of a fair deal before announcing they're going to leave, because it would look so stupid to do that, to be like, oh, actually, sorry, lads, I'm here week 1 of preseason now.
Well, correct, because, I mean, if we, and I know that the media are not always accurate, I'll preface it with that statement, but it was basically reported that Gold Coast had offered the pick 6.
Yeah.
And I think you don't have to be a genius to figure out that Bolton is going to net a good haul.
No, that's right.
And the length of contract they've got left, as you say, puts it all in our court. I think both will get done. We can push pretty hard, but I think at the end of the day, the fact that they've said they wanted to go, I think it will probably more than likely get done.
Yeah, I agree. The only example I can think of in recent times where it didn't happen was Papley when he wanted to get to Carlton, and it didn't happen, and that's kind of turned out okay for him, to be honest. I mean, not that Carlton are going bad, but Sydney are going equally as good, if not better.
Yeah, and I think before that, probably Ryan O'Keefe.
Yeah,
was another Swan that wanted to go to Carlton.
Sydney not having much luck, but there you go. So I suppose that's our thoughts in a nutshell on the Tiger boys leaving. But we'll shift across to the final series, because that's what we're here to do tonight. So I know it's a bit different from usual, folks. So it's not going to be all Tigers. We'll talk about the final series at hand, because it is going to be a cracker. First game we've got Thursday night, Port Adelaide versus Geelong, second versus third. Don't mind the Thursday final, firstly, especially because it's interstate. But the Power actually came home quite strong, didn't they, this season? I had them finishing second on my ladder predictor, but there was a long period of time there where they were struggling. And their form probably can fluctuate a little bit, but their last 5, I think they won their last 5 in a row. And the Cats, they've got old heads in the side still, and they're still just thereabouts, aren't they? It's, I suppose Tom Hawkins didn't have the best of years. He's obviously out injured. I don't know if he's going to get back for this week. I think it might be a next week proposition if they're guaranteed a second.
VFL.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, okay. I think I saw something today. Hawkins and Cam Guthrie are playing the VFL side.
Interesting. Okay. I suppose when you've got the second game up your sleeve, no matter what, you can obviously afford to do that and not, waste them on the park if they get hurt again. But it's going to be an interesting game, that one. Who are you liking for that?
Look, it's really complicated for me. I'm not going to mention the odds, because we don't want to promote gambling or whatever, but Port are strong favourites, and I can't see the gap as big as what the market has it. Geelong have overcome being that brittle side, and they were quite good in the year that they won the flag, and Dangerfield looks as good as ever. They've developed some good young kids, and Port are the ones that have not yet proven their mettle when it comes to finals. And the thing complicating issues for Port is you've now got Houston and Kane Farrell out for the season. Now, they're big losses, right? And if we think back to 2019, which is probably, I think, from a difficulty point of view, a really, really good flag, we lost Rance in round 1, and Damien Barrett then declared we couldn't win the flag. I just want to bring that up too.
Yes.
No Rance, no Richmond. Right, but it took us 4 or 5 weeks to recalibrate our side. Now, I know that they're not a key position player like Rance, but that's 2 cogs out of your starting 18, not your 23,
Yeah.
that you have to readjust for, and you don't have a couple of games to get that right.
Yeah, it is a big change. And I was watching their game against Fremantle, and Logan Evans was actually the one that stepped up to the plate to do the kicking out duties and kind of became the general down back, which was ace for me because I needed him to score well on Supercoach and I won the grand final because of him. But I was actually surprised at how well he kind of adapted to the role in what was really a finals-like game away as well. So it was actually quite impressive. But it'd be interesting to see who they bring in to play that role because, yeah, Farrell is equally as big of miss as what Houston is, I think. But I think the biggest thing going for Port is I think we might see the emergence of their young midfield, Rosie, Butters. You got Horn Francis in there as well. Ollie Wines, obviously, on the older side. But, yeah, Butters, Rosie, Horn Francis in particular just have a unique habit of being in the right spot at the right time to drag that team over the line in certain stages. And I kind of just feel like they've matured enough that they could get the job done against the Cats, especially at home.
Yeah, I think Rosie's he's the Bolton, he's the cream on top, whereas Butters and Horn Francis, I think, give you more week in, week out. I cannot wait to see Horn Francis in a big final. I reckon it's going to be really something. And he reminds me a lot of Dangerfield in the way that he crashes through packs, in the fact that his disposal is normally pretty good, but every now and then he absolutely shanks one. He's an absolute bull, and I reckon he's built for finals, and I cannot wait to see him go head-to-head with Danger. I reckon it's going to be great.
Do you prefer to see him play forward a lot more or midfield?
Yes.
You'd rather him in the mid?
No. I think he's that great hybrid. And you think of when Danger was in his pomp, it was the same. He would play, 15, 20 minutes in the centre, and he played 10 minutes down forward and he'd snag 1 or 2 goals.
Yeah.
And Dusty did the same. So, he can do a really good bit of both. And I think it will depend on how Port are going in the midfield and how they're going down forward, because the issue for Port for me is scoring goals.
Yeah, well, because Dixon was out for that clash. I'm not sure if it was a longer injury or if he's back. Georgiades has been okay since coming back. Willie Rioli obviously will have a job to do as a small, but yeah, especially when you look at the Cats backline with Kolajasny, Henry, Blitzard will plays down there, Tui. They're pretty steady, and obviously you've got Tom Stewart, who has been playing midfield, that can obviously be super reliable down back as well as an intercept marker. So they definitely do have the players in place to handle a forward line that doesn't have 2 potent key forwards.
Yeah, and I think the issue of Port and scoring goals is, historically, if you go to the big games, Dixon doesn't do much, and Todd Marshall hasn't been the answer, hasn't been able to physically impose himself. And I think that Horn Francis can physically impose himself forward. So, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating contest. So who are you going to tip for this one?
I'll tip Port, but I think that the Cats should be given more of a chance than what they are being given.
Yeah, you definitely can't discount their experience at the pointy end of season. So you've got Jeremy Cameron, Dangerfield, Mitch Duncan. So
if we want the universe to align, though, we need Port to win this week. More on that in a minute.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to work that out in my head, but that's all right. I'm glad. The second game on the Friday night, this is going to be one of the games of the round, if you want to call it a round. The Bulldogs versus the Hawks. And I've said this, I'm actually disappointed that they're playing each other. I would have liked to have seen them play 2 other sides to make it really interesting, because they're both in ripper form. The Doggies finished 6th, the Hawks finished 7th. The Hawks, have pulled off the wonder year, being 0-5 and making finals. I think the last team that did that was Sydney, and I think we did it a little bit before them. And as we saw, by the time we made finals, we were absolutely cooked. And that is my main concern for the Hawks, that they've done so much to get to this spot that they could have spent all their petrol tickets. And by contrast, the Dogs, they're a team that I think could legitimately win it. Similar to their 2016, they've got a great midfield. Treloar has been unbelievably good this year. I almost feel like he hasn't got the recognition because he's sitting behind the Bont, who's just on his own level. But yeah, they are flying. Libba obviously does good things. Ugo Hagen, Norton, Sam Darcy's actually found some really good form recently. So they are right up for the challenge.
Yeah. And as you talked about running out of steam when you get to the finals, when you do start the season 3-9 and then you win 9 in a row to make the finals, don't kick into the wind. That's the other thing. But yeah, the other thing with this, and I really love hockball, as they call it. I love it. I really like watching Hawthorn play, but Will Day's a massive out for them.
Yeah, he is.
That's a massive out. I think both sides are flying. And the other stumbling block for me for Hawthorn is the Dogs forward line has got a lot of height about it.
Yeah.
Darcy's 208, Norton's 197. Who's the other bloke I'm thinking of?
Ugo Hagen.
Ugo Hagen's 196, 197. And I think Scrimshaw's 194, Froster's 194, and Sicily's 188. They're a bit undersized.
Yeah.
So I think Hawks would be praying, my goodness, for a wet and slippery night.
It feels like it'll have to be a team defense kind of night for the Hawks to help get that job done, which they would have had to have dealt with in the past, undoubtedly during the season. But and then you got our mate Rory Lobb, who could play both ends to get a job done too. But yeah, it's a pretty dangerous forward line. And you look at their midfield: Tim English, Bontempelli, Liberatore, Treloar. The one who I've really loved in the centre bounce, and Beveridge didn't make this move until halfway through, is Ed Richards. I actually think it was a bit of a masterstroke putting him in the midfield. He's got super pace, and he was very good off the half-back line, but I think he's actually gone to another level in the midfield.
He's strong over the ball too. He's got a bit of the pickings about him.
Yeah. No, he's been very good. What else are we going to say about them? The back line for the Dogs still seems pretty strong. Liam Jones, Rory Lobb. For the Hawks up front, I'm actually truly surprised they've done so well, given they've not had Mitch Lewis for bulk of the year. And we've obviously seen a lot of Marbia Troll being at Richmond for however long he was with us for. But the one thing that Hawthorn have been able to do that we couldn't do and that the Suns couldn't do is they've actually unlocked the work rate piece of his game. And it's what's taken him to another level. He's chasing, he's tackling. Yes, sometimes he still looks laconic, but I think that's just his style. But I hate to admit it, but he's been a really good pickup for him.
Oh, he's been fantastic. He's been great. And, you've got the two little, you've got the Duck twins.
Watson and Jesus Christ. I'm not a good player, not a fan of his. Oh, yes.
And the clown from Collingwood.
Yeah, Ginnivan. Yeah.
Yeah, Ginnivan. They've got a good, dynamic, fast-moving forward line. And one of the other positives for me for Hawthorn in the centre is their physicality, and that is a lot to do with the size of Nash. He's a monster.
What an extraordinary move, positional-wise, that's been. I don't think anyone would have picked that a couple of years ago, but he's a tough size to match up on. He's not short enough for, the smaller mids, but yeah, he bashes and crashes with the best of them.
Yeah. And on Lob before, that has been that has been every bit of an inspired move as what Richards has, because I think maybe it's a good example of him being shown that he doesn't have great footy intelligence. So he wasn't able to create going forward, but following a forward and just sticking to their backs and doing whatever. He's been fantastic down back.
He has been good. Bevo must have listened to the show and wanted to bump up his trade value after CB flagged him as a potential option. Who are you picking for this one? This is a legit 50-50 for me.
Purely on the fact that Day's out, I've got to go with the Dogs.
I think I'm going to agree with you. The other part I'm not sure about with Hawthorn is I'm still not fully convinced Sicily's shoulder's right. He's played, I think, under duress for a little while. Like, he's been pretty brave to get his side through. This might just be a step too far. I wouldn't be shocked if Hawthorn won, though, having said that. Yeah, it's going to be a ripper game. So I'll be at home with the little one while the rest of the family go to that. So hopefully it's not too bad of a game. The Saturday game, we've got the Swans against the Giants, first versus fourth. The Giants kind of resurrected their season a little bit later in the year, didn't they? They were top four thereabouts, and then they fell off the face of the earth for a little bit, and then they're back. The one thing that popped to mind is it kind of, and I don't know if this has got any truth to it whatsoever, but I remember when we kind of did similar things, we talk about heavy training load, dare I say it, and it's like, did they run themselves into the ground to prep themselves for this time of year? Because their football is completely different in the last 3 or 4 weeks than what it was the 3 or 4 weeks prior to that.
Yeah, I mean, it just was so random that they just dropped completely off the pace.
Yeah, it was out of nowhere.
I really, really liked them for the whole lot earlier in the season. And then I just thought, what's going on here? And I thought they were a chance to miss the 8 there for a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they've timed it beautifully to end up in the top 4. They've given themselves a second shot. And the beauty of Sydney finishing on top is they don't have to travel week 1.
Yes, yeah, exactly right. And the Swans have had their fair share of up and downs, which looked unlikely for a large part of the season. I suppose they were looking like going bloody 21 and however many losses, but they picked up quite a few injuries. They lost a few games towards the end there that they really shouldn't have. I know for a while I was probably talking about that they needed to have a loss or two. I didn't mean quite that many or quite in that nature. So the question still for me around them is still their forward line. I don't know if they've got two. I think McDonald and Amati, but are they going to be big enough in a finals type situation to get the job done?
I'll be tipping the Giants, but I think one of the underrated pieces of the Sydney puzzle is Big McLean.
Okay,
he pinch hits down forward and his second ruck. I really rate him. I love him. Big and physical, and he's got a lot of finals about him. I reckon the way he plays. And Sydney are that's a big call.
we didn't. With Castro?
Yeah. Because if you do go back to our 2018 season, we weren't very convincing in that last 4 weeks.
No, but yeah, was it similar reasons? I'm not. I think that's a bit late to leave a training load, though.
Yeah.
Although actually, having said that, though, they were the only team in the position to do that.
True.
Like they had top spot pretty much.
True.
Yeah.
I'm Sydney versus GWS always really physical, intense, close sort of affairs, and I just reckon that GWS might have a bit more junkyard dog about them.
Yeah, and they've got, their defence, it's going to be a good matchup. Himmelberg, Taylor, Iden, Perryman, and then Whitfield is pretty much there.
Buckley. Buckley's been very good.
Buckley. So what's interesting is their last game, they got smashed by 37 points to the Bulldogs, who do have those very good tall forwards that we're speaking about previously. So then I'm like, well, how does McDonald, Amati, and McLean compare to Uehagen, Norton, and and Sam Darcy? Like, are they going to have similar struggles, or are they maybe more likely to get the better of the Sydney forwards?
I think a McDonald and Amati are good players. I just think maybe it's a year too soon for them.
Yep.
I think in a couple of years' time they'll be battle hardened and ready, and that's why I was saying I think that McLean is ready now.
Yep.
I just think the other two, who are the more permanent forwards, they're just a little bit suspect at the moment.
But yeah, they will get. Oh, go on.
McDonald, particularly, I think in a couple of years is going to be a real nice player.
Yeah. No, they've definitely, and they've done so well to get to where they are. But it's going to be a good experience one way or another. But they are going to get Warner back, I believe, and it sounds like Papley will come back as well. So Sydney, I believe, are definitely one of the teams who are benefiting from the week off, getting a couple of those guys back. And I suppose in some ways you make your own luck. You finish first, you've got the double chance, then you've got the week off, you get some players back. Do you think they're going to put some time into a Lachie Whitfield, who pretty much sets everything up exclusively for the Giants from the back half and the ball's turned over? I'm actually surprised more teams don't do it.
Well, we saw earlier in the year when you put some time into Tom Stewart, what happens, and they ended up moving him into the centre.
Yeah, that's right.
Who would do it?
I'm not sure what tagging sort of plays they've got. Like, I'm just looking. I mean, who would play? Could someone like a Gordon? Would you play him off half back or half forward and make him accountable? Maybe not. They've got Will Hayward, James Jordan played half forward, Luke Parker.
Will Hayward could do it, and Luke Parker could do it. Yep.
Just to keep him accountable.
Luke Parker's been good in the last part of the season.
Yeah. So I just feel like they're going to have to pay a little bit of attention to Lachie Whitfield there. But James Jordan, number one super coach in MSS. Yeah, exactly.
And that's coming from a couple of people. Rhino said that as well.
Yeah, who've taken people out of games. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Who are you tipping for this one? Oh, you said the Giants.
I'm with the Giants, yeah.
I think the Giants could be the team that might go all the way, to be honest. Jesse Hogan, firstly, congratulations winning the Coleman. It's a great effort. It's a great story from all the shit. We all know publicly the shit he's been through. And there was probably a part of me that felt a couple of years ago he might have just been sort of fading away off into the distance as they found people to take over. But he has, more than earned his spot and held it and plus some. So, well done to Jesse Hogan, but he's in ripper form. I've got the Giants for that one as well. Let us know in chat who's everyone picking for that one, the Swannies or the Giants. And then the last game for the finals, we've got the Lions against the Blues. 5th versus 8th. I was at the St Kilda Carlton game, and it was an unbelievable atmosphere. We were pretty excited at the prospect of Carlton missing, and then bloody Freo did us dirty later on that night. But like we were saying before, Carlton are definitely the other team that's going to benefit from this week off because there's I don't know categorically if they're coming back in, but I would hazard a guess that Curnow Mackay will come back in. I think was Chera the other one that might come back in, and was there one more? Is that Fisher or Williams maybe? I'm not sure if he was. No, he's Kangaroos Williams. If there was another one who might come back in. But it sounds like at a minimum that the big forwards come back in, which is undeniably, the biggest threat for all the teams in the top 8. If they in the finals, if they fire, it's going to be dangerous. But the Lions are an interesting one. I know they made the grand final last year, but I still think at some points they're a little bit fragile with finals, similar to Port Adelaide. Joe Danaher, I reckon, does a great job. My main concern is I'm not sold on Eric Hipwood's output in big games.
No. Sard was the other one that may come back.
Sard. Sard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, look, no, I've said this on Twitter, and I maintain this. The Lions are a mentally weak football club. Hipwood is the perfect example of that. One week he can look like Tarzan, the next week he looks like Jane. I honestly believe that, well, first of all, you've got to give credit to Fagan because if you remember back before he was coach, you had players jumping out of that club so fast it wasn't funny. Right?
Yeah.
So Fagan has been a real piece. He's really gelled the club together. Everyone is happy to be there. Players are happy to go there. So they've done a great job in stabilising the place. But I reckon you've got to have a bit of shit in you as a coach. And I think if you look at Clarkson, Hardwick, Scott, they're all slightly angry men.
Yeah.
I don't think you cannot question the mental toughness of those three individuals. And I think your team is a reflection of you. And I think that Brisbane would have won at least one, if not more flags with that stacked, talented list if Hardwick or Clarkson was coaching or Scott was coaching the club.
It's hard to fathom they haven't won a flag, isn't it? Like the side has improved, year on year for the last 5 or 6 years, and even 2020, that was them and Port Adelaide completely pissed that up against the wall, not being in the grand final, let alone winning it. That was their prime opportunity.
Yeah. Well, there you go. And then you got two sides coached by Scott and Hardwick against all odds were the ones that got through.
Yeah.
And we played Port in Port. The Cats played Brisbane in Brisbane.
But and both the teams that shouldn't have got through.
Yeah.
You look at their midfield. They've got McCluggage, Berry, Dunkley, Lockie Neal in unbelievable form. The Big O, I reckon, is a great ruckman, Big Oscar. Will Ashcroft just casually slots back in, in the last handful of games, and he's going to be a super player.
And look, I don't think there's a bloke that I dislike more in the AFL than the bloke I'm about to talk about. But absolutely congratulations and hats off to the year he's had at the age he is. Dane Zorko's been amazing off the half-back line.
Yeah, another drive. Yeah, so a good move by Fags to put him back there. It's a bit of a good reinvention. That has been a very, very good move. They're an interesting side. Ralph, I tend to agree with you. The team's full of lippy players. For me, and I've said this a few times, I think on the normal show, but they're a team who talk a lot of shit who haven't achieved a lot. I think now it's time for them. They've got to sort of put actions now to speak louder than words for the Lions. They obviously got Dunkley in, and they are in a very good spot. Harris Andrews, Leicester, I think someone said Payne might be when they come back in. But, they are in a good spot. But looking at the Blues, Paddy Cripps, I mean, you know what you're going to get from him week to week. Sam Walsh, a very good partner in crime there in the midfield. But, if they don't get Kernell Mackay back at a reasonable level, they're going to struggle. I'm looking at the team they took in last week. They had Matt Kennedy, Brody Kemp as their main forwards. That's not going to get the job done, but I don't think that's what they're going to roll with either. I
can't believe Harris Andrews didn't make the All-Australian side.
There's a few interesting ones.
He will. I think Brisbane will handle them even if they're back. They should win this. I think they should win. They should win this pretty easily. But just on one Carlton player you mentioned there, Patrick Cripps, unbelievable. And I think it was 3/4 time against the Saints, and he's just walking around going, yes, he's smiling and he's going, come on. He was loving it. He was loving it, and he is so ready for crap like this. I've got a massive man crush on Cripps. He's easily my favourite non-Richmond player. I love him.
Yeah, it's games like this that he's going to probably go to another level. De Koning was the other one. A few have flagged that may come back in. He would be a massive addition if he comes back. I'm not sure what the original injury was and how long he was meant to be out for, but that would be big. George Hewitt's been the apparently if he's thereabouts. Could you imagine if they head into this final with De Koning, Mackay, and Curnow as 3 ins?
Yeah,
that makes it a really interesting ball game.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, but Brisbane's just so stacked. They just should get it done. They just should.
Yeah.
I didn't talk about this in the Sydney game. Sydney's big issue is not getting off to good starts this year, the second half of the year. They've really important. Brisbane's big issue is their goal kicking. It's been a thorn in their side for years.
Yes.
If they kick the first 2 or 3 goals, they will win. That easy, it's not funny. If they miss a few early, game on. Yeah,
if they leave the door open, exactly right. They'll it's if you think about form line as well, have a look at the last few games. So Brisbane lost 2 of their last few. Hang on, I'm just trying to make my screen wider. So Brisbane lost 2 of their last 5, and Carlton have won 1 of their last 5. So the Lions are probably technically coming in with a bit better form, but they just had such a good stretch during the middle and latter part of the year to get themselves into finals. Like they were a genuine risk of missing early days in those first sort of 6 to 8 rounds. But they obviously got their shit together and well and truly back on track. But the Lions should go deep. But if Carlton get these big names back, at 80% fitness and they can get over the line, it's gonna cause some serious chaos in the weeks to come.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So, going back to what I was saying before about we need Port to win.
Oh, yes, go on. Yep.
Right. So, the way that I have it is, so the loser of GWS Sydney plays the winner of Brisbane and Carlton, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, right. So, the loser of Port and Geelong plays the winner of Hawthorn and the Dogs.
Oh.
I would love Hawthorn to get up and for Hawthorn to be the side that knocks Geelong out in straight sets. That's what I want.
Wow, that would be huge. Jeez, that'd be
a Hawthorn Geelong final would be massive. Like
it would be
enormous.
Yeah, it would be,
Yeah.
and you might see a Hawkins back for it as well, just to add a bit more to it. Jesus,
well,
that
again,
would be huge.
You're at that point where Carlton and Brisbane are this week. It's your roll of the dice if in that second week of finals.
How fit are you talking that you would want to play? So let's whether it's Hawkins, Curnow, Mackay, whatever it is, if you're playing in a game that's make or break, are you going with a 60% fit player? Are you going 70? Like, what's your minimum that you would need them to be at to say, you know what, he still probably could, well, not probably, but could give us more than someone else?
It depends who it is. I think with a midfielder, you've got to be 80 plus because you'll just get exposed over the course of 4 quarters. For a key position player, you might be able to be a little bit less, especially a bigger key position player. So like Jack has to be fit. Jack Riewoldt had to be fit because he wasn't the biggest and he relied on his movement and his guile and things like that. Whereas a Tom Lynch can be less fit because he's more it's a lot more about physical size. Tom Lynch wasn't out thinking opponents too often, was he?
No, he was just see ball, get ball.
Yeah.
Which played in his favour.
If Curnow, and I think Curnow could be less fit than Mackay because I think Curnow's cleverer.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do selection-wise. I kind of agree with you a bit here, don't argue. And even to the GWS Richmond Grand Final when they rolled the dice on Phil Davis and it was Lockie Whitfield, I think it was, didn't pay off at all.
No, Lockie Whitfield was uber sore.
Yes.
And he was sore and early. He had his appendix out like 11 days before or something. Yeah. And Davis was just unable to go with Riewoldt. Yeah.
So and that's another good question from Dan. How many changes is too many? I think to your point, EJ, it depends on the player coming back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're flicking the magnets around, you got Curnow and Mackay there at your disposal instead of Kemp or Kennedy. I think you have to bite the bullet.
I would say how many forced changes is too many changes because if you think back to the last round when GWS got beaten, at that stage of the weekend, they knew that they were going to finish 4th regardless, right? They rested 4 players they pulled 4 players out an hour before the game.
Yeah.
So
nothing was changing.
So that wasn't their real side to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So they'll probably have more changes, but it won't be real changes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're just replacing what the late changes were. Yeah, that's fair. I know what you mean. It's a fair call.
Yeah.
So are we both picking Brisbane for that one?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, that is going to be a fascinating final series. It's a cracking first week. Very, very good. Was there any other topics to throw in amongst that? All games are sold out too, which it's going to be interesting to see what the number is. Now, for the Bulldogs and Hawthorn game, I was shocked to find this out, that they were letting members buy guest passes. For every membership you had, you could buy a guest pass for 2 Melbourne teams, which I've never seen before. I've seen it happen for interstate. But yeah, that seems a little bit crazy. But it's it'll be interesting to see how many people actually do rock up to these games.
Well, what they've declared, the Bulldogs and the Hawks are sellout?
Every single game on the AFL website is listed as sold out.
I reckon they'll get high 70s, low 80s to the Hawks Bulldogs.
I was going to say about 83 to 85.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which would be pretty flat if Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
I do have a topic to raise off the back of Dwayne Russell on SEN today, and
Oh, yeah,
I don't listen to the show, but I saw a tweet on it.
yeah.
And Dwayne was saying that if GWS beat the Swans, that they shouldn't be able to hold the prelim at their home ground.
What? On what basis?
Well, because it's not big enough, and it's not, you'll only get a crowd of 20,000. And
he's
it's
playing the wrong card. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, can I just say that, Dwayne, if you believe that, and you have every right to your beliefs, but if you believe that, I want you to campaign just as hard that Geelong cannot host a final down at that toilet seat for the same reason. The ground's not big enough.
Yeah, and he may ultimately have a point that they might not play it there depending on who it's against. But I think it will just come down to who the opponent is, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. If you go back to 2016, that prelim against the Bulldogs was one of the greatest games of all time.
Yes, it was. Yep.
And that was at that little tin pot stadium. So,
that was a ripper.
Yeah.
Can we? Can the Bulldogs versus Giants eventuate at some point? That would be a very good grudge match. I think it can.
Hang on. So if the Giants, I'd have to get the bracket up.
That's right. We'll flag that one next week. We'll see how it pans out. Don't argue. To answer that question, I'm led to believe that the people who are attending the AFLW curtain raiser are allowed to stay for the main game. So that's whoever attends that can still sit there for the main game as well. So there we go.
How unreal for the girls to be able to play on the MCG.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that it's all kicked off again. So it's good to get a bit of exposure, which is nice. But that is a wrap for the first week of finals. Hopefully, we see some really good games. But EJ, thank you for jumping on. We'll see how it pans out next week. And if everyone enjoyed that, let us know. Obviously, our knowledge isn't maybe as good as what it is for Richmond. I thought we covered it pretty well. I thought we did okay. So
it's all opinions.
Yeah, that's it.
If the press can be wrong for 98% of the year, surely we can be wrong for 45 minutes on a Monday night.
Exactly right. Exactly.
And I'll tell you what, if Geelong lose and if Hawthorn win, there will definitely be a preview next week.
Yes, maybe a live call. Maybe do a live call as well. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Much appreciated. If you're on YouTube, make sure you give us a subscribe. We are tracking towards 1,000. I think we're up at about 930 now, roughly. And follow us on X and Facebook, whatever else we're on. And we will come back on next Monday and we'll see how the finals are tracking. But enjoy the football this week. If your team's playing, good luck. We will just keep looking at draft picks because that's all we care about currently, EJ. We've got no skin in this.
No, none at all. Go Power.
Yeah, go Power. Oh, I'm not sure. Go Brisbane. Go Brisbane. See you guys.